Good morning, Daily Rip crew. Welcome back to another episode. Hope everybody's having a great morning so far. These markets are moving again this morning. PPI data coming out here. The year over year actual print was 3%. Forecast was 2.6%, and the previous was 2.4%, so slightly higher. Market's down a bit off of that. NQ futures are down about 150 points from the high yesterday. So we're keeping an eye on all that, seeing if there's any more opportunity for the upside or if we're gonna start drifting down here. But nice morning, getting some movement. We'll see how the day goes ahead. But Shy, how we feeling this morning?
Feeling great, feeling great. I'm seeing that some volatility is somewhat coming back in the markets right now. So nice to see. I do think I don't know, every name I track is way overextended. So I don't love that setup entering a new year. So I would like, I don't know, Q's being up 2% yesterday on essentially on what? CPI meeting expectations kind of tells you everything you need to know about like what the market dynamics are right now. Is essentially, if nothing's gonna buck this trend, things will continue up. And I think the PPI, although it's a little alarming, came in higher than estimates. It doesn't have the same kind of weight as a CPI. Maybe down the line, this PPI hot print might transition or translate into a hot CPI print because that's usually how it works. Producer prices go up, and then eventually consumer prices will go up following that. But there's gonna have to be a couple of those hot PPI prints in order for that to occur. So we'll see. Like this was a little alarming. This was obviously a no bueno type of day for macro data. I just don't think it was that bad
Yeah,
to make the market sell off.
I'm with you. Yeah, I personally think even if we do go lower, we need to go a bit higher first. But of course, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Right now, though, just back testing those December NFP highs that I've been talking about on the show. Yesterday, we just absolutely ripped. I ended up catching some more longs outside of that little consolidation in the morning there, and was able to get a piece of the pie to the upside yesterday. But we're just back testing some of those big levels, right? So for me, I'm not, even with us being down a bit from yesterday's high so far, I'm not heavily bearish quite yet. Even though that move was a little crazy yesterday, and we definitely could pull back a bit, I'm not too convinced quite yet. So we'll see what happens. But let's hop into the daily rip and cover some of what's been happening in the markets from yesterday. Here's the heat map from yesterday. So Nvidia doing a little bit better. Some tech doing better, right? Nice to see we got the bounce back, obviously with CPI yesterday. That move, it just had a lot of volatility and a lot of volume on it. So I was really, when I was live, I was talking to everybody. I was like, you don't want to fight this type of trend, right? Unless it's clear and there's a real spot for you to be fighting this trend. I mean, it's not worth it on that type of price action to the upside. So great day for the markets there. How'd you do, Shy? How'd you feel about yesterday? I know. Obviously, with CPI, it's a little overdone for you, but I'm
No, I
sure
mean,
I'm sure the
I
long term portfolio is up a lot.
oh, it totally is. I love the extra juice it's getting toward the end of the year for those year to date gains. I mean, yeah, yesterday was a day of large tech. It really was. You saw Amazon like going up 2%, Google's up 5%, Nvidia 3%, like QQQ was up 2%. So it was a very much a day of large tech. Winners are keep winning. Love seeing Amazon cross. It was a 230. Love seeing Tesla to the cents. As crazy as this was, like their high of the day yesterday was 420.69 at one point.
For a good
And
minute too.
for a
For
good
a
minute. So
good
like
minute, it sat there.
it's just crazy how it's just the fuckery that's happening kind of a little. But I mean,
Wild.
Tesla's catching a major bid. It's not quite overbought yet on the monthly charts. It is on the on the weekly chart significantly, and 100% is on the daily chart. So there's going to be somewhat of a rug pull because when there's these kind of stock price moves on no fundamentals, just a narrative, typically it's overdrawn, overblown in either direction. It's either really good, really bad. Like you're seeing the really good right now with Tesla. It's based on pure narrative. You're seeing the really bad right now with Uber, pure narrative. Everyone's saying like I do think long term Tesla will be disrupting Uber's network, their advantage they currently have right
It's not here
now.
yet though. It's a little
No,
early
not
for
at
all
all.
that. That's why I still think this Uber dip is a potential
Totally.
opportunity in the short term for sure.
100%. I think it's like one of those like if it holds this level, which it looks like it is pre-market, it's gonna bounce back to $75, and that right there is a 20% move you can capture. Where a lot of names in the market are kind of a little frothy right now. That is one of the few opportunities where fundamentals are intact. All these all the FUD that's generated on this name is long term, 3 or 4 plus years out, not in the next 12 to 18 months. And you heard the commentary from the CEO yesterday as well on it's just overblown. Like there's gonna be no issue in 2025 for Uber, and I think you're gonna see their stock kind of play catch up a bit as we end the year. But either way, Tesla is like just dominating, and I actually don't know where the ceiling is in the stock
Well,
because like
something
when
we have to remember now is okay, like we were just at 350 and we were all hyped about that, right? So, obviously
Mhm.
these numbers are great. We just broke all-time highs. I expect, continued buying, but it doesn't mean we can't see those dips come, right? We're going to see dips and we're going to see dips back down in my opinion towards probably that 350 area, 375 area. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that sometime into 2025 into the beginning. Just because, I mean, those were prices we were just at, and we were all happy about that, right? Of course, yeah. I mean, look what can happen in just a short amount of time, right? With us sitting over $420 now, but it just for how fast we went away from those levels, I'm not going to be surprised if we see a little bit of a pullback. But it's also not going to worry me at all, right? Unless I have a real reason to be worried, which I don't. So,
I
um,
mean,
I would
whenever
just obviously just be ready for it. I don't think it's here yet, but yeah, go ahead, try.
no, I was gonna say whenever a stock is over 100% above their 200-day SMA, it's way overextended. There will be a pullback.
Yeah.
Right now for Tesla, their 200-day SMA is at, let me pull it up, is at 222. So it's almost nearly double now at trading pre-market at
And we
425. So
did
like
just break all time highs, so I don't think it's like this instant pullback from all time highs
yeah.
personally. Maybe we do. But I think we see some continued buy and probably bring that moving average you have it up a bit. So I don't know. I'd be curious, but
Hmm.
good stuff for Tesla, man. That was history yesterday for sure. CPI print seals Fed's December plan. So looking interesting there with the CPI print. I just traded that volume as much as I could yesterday. Caught a nice little piece of it, but really left some good money on the table to be honest with trading that. But what were your thoughts on the CPI print, Try?
I think it was a good enough print to, again, continue the market trend setting. I think it's solidified there will be a 25 basis point cut from the Fed next cycle. However, I don't know where the Fed goes from here in 2025 on cuts. You're seeing semi signs of inflation isn't really going lower. It's not going that much higher, but it's also not going lower. And you are in fear
Not at
right
a
now of
fast enough rate as you'd want to see, at least.
100%. Like 3% is like, yeah, it's a way better than it was like 8 to 9% before. But remember, this is 3% year over year. This is coming off of like really bad comps the previous year and it's still at 3%. So like the biggest fear right now for the markets is inflation glaring back up again because that's a very prolonged phase of trying to get that down. It's not like a flip of a switch. It takes a substantial time to buck that inflation trend. So if inflation ignites again, that is the Fed's worst fear. That is Trump's biggest fear as well. It's everyone's biggest fear because that's something you can't like really buck that narrative on something that's immediate. It's going to be a very prolonged multi-year process. So if the Fed continues a rate cut cycle and you're seeing PPI come in hot, it's going to come even hotter. If CPI follows suit, there is some troubling signs. And I think Powell is very risk averse. Like, he just won't want inflation flaring back up again. And I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think we're gonna get a rate hike, but I think maybe a pause until more macro data comes in play, and that's kind of been his playbook for forever. It's just more data comes in, and we'll make that decision. We're not gonna be fixed on any playbook that we initially communicated before.
Yeah, some noteworthy pops and drops. We talked about Adobe yesterday on the show, and then them having earnings yesterday. They are down 9% this morning. I think 10% now in the pre-market. The software's giant's fourth quarter earnings and revenue topped expectations, but its first quarter in fiscal 2025 revenue guidance missed estimates there. Shy, I know you were watching Adobe. Any thoughts with the earnings there?
Yeah, some key areas that was really bullish was Document Cloud went up 25%. Their RPO went up 16%. So like the adoption of their AI features is accelerating. However, I do think there's some murkiness on the specificity of how they're going to monetize their AI, what their pricing tier adjustments are going to be, see expansion opportunities. Their NNARR growth was really converging at a interesting time when demand seems nuanced. So I think their analyst day is in March. So I think that's going to be their defining moment for Adobe on shuttering this AI narrative that it's going to disrupt them. And they have to like be a lot more transparent on what their AI narrative is going to be. Like, is this going to be one that's going to continue to be constantly complex, or are they going to actually provide some actual insights to make a narrative of how they're going to be reshaping the post AI world? So I think there's just so much noise in Adobe stock, and you saw it yesterday in their prints. They do have some currency exchange issues that's causing them to be their guide to be lighter than what folks anticipated. And when you have a Gen AI disruption narrative associated to your stock and you guide lower, there's going to be an overselling nature to the stock, and that's what you're seeing today. I don't think the print yesterday was down 11% bad, but it also wasn't what the street or investors needed to see in order to like make the stock go higher. So they're caught in this like dead area, and I think this might be somewhat of a dead stock until March, until they have their investor day where they can hopefully provide the clarity for what everyone else needs to clear their heartburn.
Yeah, well, and the charts clearly reflected what you were just saying there, kind of at that stock. You look at the weekly, it's just like, you know, on a way higher time frame, everything looks all right, but it's just we've been stuck in this back and forth consolidation, right, where nothing is really happening. We're basically at the same price we were in August, so not really doing anything here, and it's just reflecting that perfectly. So good stuff there. We had Broadcom as well, up 7%. The chipmaker jumped on reports. It's collaborating with Apple to design its first artificial intelligence chip. They also have earnings tonight, so something to watch out for. Even with that pop, that might a little bit of a pre-earnings run up there. So I'd be careful into the earnings because we all know that's a bit of a gamble, especially if you're trying to play options on something like that. But what do you thinking for Broadcom, Shy?
I
We
mean,
got earnings tonight, and then that pop, with Apple news, it could be interesting.
it's funny how that works. This kind of like news drop right
Right,
before
right
their
before.
earnings. So I don't know.
Yep.
My take on it, corporate hat knocked me a great print tonight. It's nothing special. They wanted to juice it
You've
up
ran
a
a lot,
bit.
man.
Yeah,
That ticker has gone crazy over this whole past 6 months of 2024. It's just been ridiculous.
100%. Like they're going to be a very important component of the AI infrastructure phase. Still, it's just like look to the left, like what Jordan just said. Like a lot is being priced in. What do they actually have to like print today for them to catch a bid? Something I don't think they're capable of, and that is a lot of risk to reward. I'm not saying Broadcom's a bad company. I'm just saying a lot of positivity is priced into the stock, and I just don't think the appetite is there right now for the semiconductor names. You're seeing it across the board with SMH just like essentially not flat, but like just not doing anything for months. I think that's indicating to you like what's going to happen for these semiconductor names entering 2025. Like it's just going to be basing. They're basing. So AVGO like is almost a $1 trillion company going up 7% in one day due to this collaboration, which was already known to the market. Like it wasn't a surprise. Like we knew this was occurring for the Apple. Tells you a lot about like frothiness right now in some names. So be cautious.
Yeah, 100%. We also have Alaska Airlines up 4% off of multiple price target hikes there. AG Eagle Aerial Systems down 13%. The provider of unmanned aerial systems, sensors, and software solutions announced that it has been granted green UAS certification from the Association of Unscrewed Vehicle Systems. So that looking not looking too good on that chart. Jeez, that's nasty. Macy's down 2%. Ardagh Metal Packaging down 6%. Q32 Bio down 72%. The clinical stage biotech company fell after the phase 2A trials of its lead candidate, Bempikibart, showed mixed results. That's an interesting name. I I mean that just explains biotech perfectly, in my opinion. Down 73% like that. I mean, you got to expect that with biotech. It's just that's the
100%.
world. That's the world you're in, trading that stuff, and it's a scary world to be in. That's why I don't participate much. But sometimes there's opportunities, and it's when it's risk on, there'll be opportunity there. But it's just you got to be careful. You got to have those stops in and make sure you're protecting yourself on stuff like that. Um, got economic data for today. Obviously, PPI came out, initial jobless claims, both higher than expected. So market, I mean, not loving that initial print, but we've kind of been just consolidating since that down move on the print going into the open. Obviously, too, we have Trump ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, which I feel like we just have to kind of get a pop off that shy, but America, we got to be green into the open. But I don't know, we'll see. Gonna be interesting there. I think we maybe have Peter hopping on and gonna show us a bit of the stock exchange this morning. Don't know for sure, so we'll see on that. But good stuff there. We had some pre-market earnings, Sienna, Live Ventures, and Lovesac going on, and then after hours today we have Costco, Broadcom, and RH. So something to watch for there. Obviously, Costco. Didn't Costco just hit $1,000 share?
They're like the most expensive valuation I think in
Ridiculous.
like years for them. So
So shout out to
um,
that. We'll see how the earnings goes, and then AVGO, of course, we covered a bit. So good stuff there. Gonna be a fun night of earnings to watch. Not too much still going on though, because we're getting into the end of the earnings season, obviously. So this is Nvidia's free cash flow. Shy, I know you wanna talk about this for a second, but just ridiculous growth there on that. That's I don't think I've seen a chart like that ever.
so I do think like the narrative of Nvidia of like the days are over for their hypergrowth phase. Like, sure, you're probably right. Like, what this 3 years ago, they were, I'm saying 2022, they were making $27 billion in revenue, top line. You just saw how much free cash flow they're making right now. Just 3 years ago, they were making $27 in revenue in total. Now, 3 years forward, they're making almost over two times that in just pure profits. That just shows how revolutionary AI has been for NVIDIA's business model. And people are saying, like, myself included, because I did sell my NVIDIA position this week, like, that there's no real bull case for NVIDIA going forward. Like, that's absolutely not the case. Like, NVIDIA is AI, and you're going to continue to see them printing cash where right now they just made $57 billion. Next year, they're supposed to be making $94 billion. The year after that, it's $125 billion. This is every year. So this is not incremental. For the next 5 years, they're probably going to be printing up $500 billion in free cash flow on top of the cash position they have already. This is turning into one of those financial engineering type of companies like an Apple where they consistently have so much cash that provides such a high floor for the stock that even if they're going to go through that cyclicality weakness period of AI, they're going to have a substantial cash position where they're going to be have the leverage to do invest in their R&D. Like, what's the next hot thing? Like, who knows? Maybe Nvidia will create something revolutionary in the quantum computing space, or maybe Nvidia creates some kind of elements that Earth is constraining them on data center or whatever on power consumption on Earth that they have to go through space in order to create their new growth avenue on storing data into those data centers because data centers don't overheat in space because I won't get to it's really cold out there. I'm just gonna say it's
It's
really
really
cold.
cold out there. Yeah.
So like they don't have that
Bring a
worry.
jacket.
Yeah. So like I think Nvidia is going to be heavily investing in their R&D. They're going to come up with the next great thing. I don't know what that's going to be, but for me, it was just all opportunity cost. Like I've been waiting for 2 years for the software stage of AI, and I want to go all in on that. So that's why I was like, I'm just gonna sell my position, use those funds to add to MongoDB on that sell off, And now I just think Nvidia is not going to go back to the date. Like people are claiming Nvidia is going to go back to pre 2022 levels. Like, how is that possible when they literally just made like $100 billion in free cash flow alone since those days, and they're going to be producing $100 billion at least every single year from there. They're not going back to those 2022 levels ever again. 2023. Worst case scenario, maybe they'll pull back to their 200-day moving average. Worst case scenario, but either way, I do think they're going to be maintaining this like stock price level. It just might not move as much as people think it's going to. Like,
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the forefront of the hype this next year
no,
like it was this
it's
year.
not going to go up 200% a year. Like it's really impossible to do that back to back to back to years when you're a $4 trillion company.
Yeah.
It's really freaking hard. But will they provide you 15% return every single year? Maybe, and that should be okay. They're at that stage of maturity for a company to do that, and they're still supposed to be growing 51% next year. So like even after next year, their CAGR's 18% for the next like 4 years. Like this is still a really solid, like not solid, like incredible business model that will continue to print cash.
Yep, holding on to my Nvidia. I ain't selling mine. Okta looking interesting. I know they recently had earnings. I'm just gonna bring up the chart myself, but yeah, off that earnings pop, made a move higher, and now we just kind of been consolidating since then. But looking pretty decent, holding some key levels, holding some big NFP levels. I have that December NFP low. We're still above that, but fighting that NFP high, right? So again, like these NFP levels, no matter what ticker it is, I love using them. They're just so accurate. But if we can clear this kind of 86 area, I would love to see that $90 level again into August NFP high, and maybe even July NFP high or NFP low at 92, which would be a new high out of this range. So looking good. I had that nice base off, low 70s, $75 there. And now we're getting that move higher off of earnings. We'll see if that continues. But not a name I'm trading pretty often, especially just lately because it's been in some tight consolidation on that monthly chart. But maybe we start making a move outside of that with the setup here. But we'll see. Any thoughts on Okta?
Yeah, I mean, Okta has a growth issue where I think they're projected to be like 7 or 8% revenue growth next year. That's really underwhelming, especially in the cybersecurity space. I think they've experienced like past 2 years some headwinds from customers reducing their upfront seat purchases to control their costs due to the macro environment was really poor in business spending, and now that business spending is kind of picking back up again. But you're seeing them guide to 7% growth next year. So the growth is the big issue, and I know the government identity solution is kind of accounting for 15 to 20% of their total bookings. So like they should have somewhat of, I don't know, AI driven identity tailwind towards AI agents. So that should be a new fresh revenue stream, but you're not seeing that reflected in their guide of 7% next year. So right now they're really, really cheap. They're trading, I think, 20 times their 2025 free cash flow. And they have a score of 42 for the Rule 40. So they are really undervalued in my opinion, but nobody really wants to bid this name up because their growth just is not there, and it's kind of baffling on why that is. So it feels like a prime acquisition target at this point, especially in a Trump-led presidency where M&A is going to be very active. Cybersecurity is one of those industries that's hyper competitive, that's going to go through a massive consolidation next couple of years. And when you have companies that are really undervalued, just don't have growth, those are the prime candidates that get scooped up by the bigger players. So I'm not adding to this name. I'm not interested in like owning a long term, but there could be a trade in 2025 for this name because it is stupid undervalued, and it's gonna probably get scooped up sometime next 2 years by some bigger player. And I do think there's a high floor in this name at this price.
SMCI. Oh, looking a little rough here. I have not been trading this name. It's just been rough here, but looking like we're getting a nice trend line break from what we've been holding. So a little bit of a market structure shift. We'll see if that continues. I know it's holding some moving averages there and still kind of within that channel, but could definitely see this making some moves lower, especially with just like all semis and the way that space has been over the past few weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we keep seeing moves lower, but we'll see. I'm not too sure there, but I think SMCI is not really where I want to be
Not at
at the
all.
moment.
It's not. It's not.
Um,
It's not a good business model, guys. Like it really
yeah.
isn't. Like their margins, like their glory day margins were 18%. Glory days, like when they had an advantage as the first mover in data centers. Now it's like 15% minus. Like it's not a scalable business model. Like, and that's excluding the accounting fraud potential revisions they're gonna have to do. And it's just like,
When I had shares on this fairly early, I feel like I beat SMCI. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. I'm like, dude, I did it. I made my money. I don't want to touch it anymore. So I'm
mhm.
not going to. You know what I mean? I feel and I'm glad I have it because every time I've thought about touching it and made the decision not to, I mean, it's been a good one because I would not have been right on some of the thoughts I had. So
Yeah.
yeah, not too much opportunity for me, but I know it has, when there's volatility, there's some great intraday moves on this. The options can be really spicy. I
Mhm.
wouldn't recommend to anybody that's new to options, but if you got a little bit of experience, you know what you're doing. I think these options on the shorter term trades can be super spicy, but you just got to be careful because they move a lot.
I mean, I'll stick my neck out. I don't think SMCA will ever hit a new all-time high ever again.
Ooh,
Ever again. Like ever
I
again.
I would probably agree. I would probably agree,
Like I think
but that
they're
might be a hot take for some people to hear. Oh,
yeah. It's just it could be a hot take. Who knows?
I'm
But
with
I
it.
just don't
I'm
think
with
so.
it.
I really don't think so.
Oh, funny stuff. We got the market opening here in about 4 minutes, so we'll see how things are
Let's
moving. Basically, just sideways since that PPI print on all the futures. SPY, QQQ, not really doing much here. So we'll see if we get that pop into the open with the Trumpster ringing the bell. That'll be fun. We'll see. I think
let's
we're gonna
see.
bring up a clip of it or something. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can absolutely share that right now if we want to take a look at the live.
while he brings that up, some news got released a couple minutes ago. Starboard takes a significant stake in Bitcoin miner riots, so a
Ooh.
lot of the miner names are running this morning. Um,
This is about the only time you'll see the New York Stock Exchange this packed. I've been there plenty of
wow,
times. It does not look like that on a normal day, but how cool to see that. It's so nice to see like
yeah,
people actually in there because this is, obviously a big hype day. But yeah, good stuff there. If you didn't know what the stock exchange looks like, those are all your market makers right there in the middle. That we all like to call, the people that stop us out and everything. They're all sitting right there on their computers all day, just doing their thing. Very cool to see. Got 3 minutes until that bell. I'm
well,
excited for this open.
apparently Trump's speaking right now, and he just said that corporate taxes is going to go down to 15%. So that's a big change, bullish for the capital markets. What else? Yeah, well,
Very cool.
America, yeah,
America, baby.
very prideful.
Oh, I love it. I know we have our boy Max coming in too. He's a big cannabis guy, so I'm excited to talk to him as well, being from California, of course. So he's going to join us in the next few minutes here.
I would love it if like the SPY just sold off today while Trump was at this on the floor.
Oh
That
my
would be
gosh.
funny.
It would be funny because I feel like nobody really expects that. I feel like everybody's like, America, we got to rip it open, you know?
Yeah,
That's what it
100%.
seems like. We'll see what these charts do. We're just back testing that 700 on NQ, not really doing too much here. Waiting for this opening print. I love the sounds in the stock exchange. If you guys listen, you hear all the all the little beeps and orders and stuff going on. I love hearing all that
Is,
stuff.
is
It's
that
so
not?
fun.
That's on my sound machine. That's what I sleep to every night.
Yeah,
It's just the
yeah,
sound.
yeah, literally. That's it's my favorite place. It's funny when you're there. I mean, you could probably already tell just from how it looks, but when you're actually there, it very much feels like a movie set for what the New York Stock Exchange would be, if that makes sense. Because like they're filming all the stock market shows and stuff, so it's all like this big
Is that RFK
showroom.
Jr.
You know what I mean?
in the blue? That's super. The only
I
one
can't.
super
I think
tan.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
he
is.
is.
Yeah, look at
Wow.
him. He's there. Everybody's there. Yeah, bearish on pharmaceuticals. RFK's there. Well, let's see. Here we go.
Oh my God.
There he is. Market is open.
Where's Baron? I'm disappointed.
I know. Where I like my suitcase.
He's like 5 miles away. Why didn't he join? Like, he goes to NYU.
Dude, that kid's huge.
I know. So funny.
This is awesome. Oh, I'm loving it. Market is still not doing anything. Back and forth so far. See if we hold these lows. Let's see. Nvidia down a bit. Tesla getting a little pop into the open above yesterday's high.
What's DJT doing? Let's see what some Trump stops are doing.
Good question.
DJT
just got a pop into the open there, but not really continuing anything quite yet. Kind of quiet so far, to be honest. Little quiet.
Did he ring the bell? Or did you just stand there the whole time?
I think it just stood there. But this also might be slightly delayed, the live that we're watching. So that's a possibility as well. Because usually they do physically ring the bell.
That's interesting.
So I'm thinking it's just delayed.
Is he just looking at his, like, who attended this party, and he's, like, making a mental list, like, who he's going to fuck over next year? Feels like a surprise birthday party for him.
I know, right? Yeah, likely this is just delayed. Oh my gosh, I love this.
This is so unorganized.
I know. Oh, I love it. Oh gosh. Actually seen a move lower so far. Back under December NFP high on NQ. We'll see if that holds. There he is. Yeah,
No
so live was
warning.
just a little
No warning. He
delayed.
just,
That was the
ran-
most unorganized bell ringing for like such an important person I've ever seen in my life. I've seen like a few of those bell rings for sure, and it's just that was ridiculous.
I don't think Trump ever got a signal of, like, when to do it. He's like, I'm just gonna do it when it feels right.
No.
All of a sudden, he's like, that was weird.
That was awesome. Well, let's get our boy in here and talk some cannabis right now. This is gonna be fun. What's up, brother? How we doing?
What's up, guys? I think I need a joint after watching that.
Yeah, after that was hilarious, huh?
Oh my God, what an act to follow there, boys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries, of course. Obviously, market's moving this morning, but I know you're big in the cannabis space. I'm interested on your thoughts on cannabis stocks right now and just how the whole space is going at the moment.
Yeah, cannabis is, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood industries. I think it offers an immense amount of opportunity, but it also is not without its share of landmines everywhere. And I know probably a lot of people on this show, viewing this show today, have probably lost their shirts invested in cannabis stocks. So hopefully my goal today is to maybe try to demystify, cut through some of the noise to help some folks understand where the industry, I think, is headed. No crystal balls in this industry. I think every time someone thinks they figured it out, something comes viciously crashing down. So, why is cannabis relevant now? It's an over $30 billion market in the US alone. It's still in its really early stages. I think investors who can really identify key trends, really companies with sound fundamentals have the potential to, I think, capitalize. I think it's really the kind of chasing different hype stuff can really burn you. You really have to look down at the company level and look at the fundamentals and see which kind of companies shine. So, I don't know if it's worth going through maybe like a quick history of like how we got here, where we are today,
Yeah,
but I can
for
go
sure.
through that.
I'd be super interested in that. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so we can do that, and then maybe I can go through a couple just like where I think there's going to be some catalysts to see
I definitely want to hear
alpha.
your take on MSOS for sure later. So yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So I think to understand where cannabis is going, you kind of have to understand where it came from. So this industry has grown up really really fast, and because of that, we've learned some really really tough lessons. So cannabis has been federally illegal since 1937. That's created an immense amount of stigma. There's been this entrenched traditional or black market. So as things have come legalized, you're still competing with a very entrenched, black market, which makes things very challenging. But Colorado, Washington, they're the ones who first legalized recreational use in 2012. That really started the industry's rapid growth. 2018, that's when Canada became the first G7 nation to basically legalize nationally. That really started to trigger, I think, the major green rush. An example of that was canopy growth, which maybe you guys have heard of in your travels. But I think at one point they achieved something like a $24 billion market cap.
Wild.
Despite, I don't think they had any profit, any sustainable revenue model. And that was just a product of like early hype. I mean, you can compare it to even like the .com era, right? Where there was so much hype going into that space, and then it crashed down, pretty viciously. But what happened was, through that green rush, as many companies, they overexpanded, they underestimated, I think, the complexities of the regulations, and the result was just overproduction, falling prices, and really just like a reckoning. So a lot of folks who came in early got burned, pretty quickly. So I think like where we are today, it's a mix of growing pains. I think there's still undeniable potential, but it's really about how do you sift through some of the short-term noise, for the longer-term opportunities. The U.S. market, just so you guys are clear on that, it's the world's largest cannabis market. It's extraordinarily fragmented by all the state laws. So each state have their own sets of rules and regulations that govern how cannabis can come to market. So this creates a ton of opportunities, but it's also a shit ton of challenges, right? So
Well, yeah, because it's not like once you get one state, you get everybody. It's like you got to work each state one at a time, right?
Right.
And be able to win over each state. Yeah.
Yeah, the economies of scale become very challenging. If you have to, normally, if say you're a beer producer, you can produce in one place and you can ship it all over the place. In cannabis, you have to set up operations in each given state. If you're a brand, you have to go through licensing deals. So there's
I
different.
think that's a big thing that people don't realize, and they don't, I guess, give enough credit to. You know what I mean? Like that's difficult to manage. A lot more difficult than, like you say, if you were just selling beer or creating, making beer. That's a
Yeah,
lot easier to get around.
the yeah
Distribute.
the compliance frameworks, even like the packaging regulations, just tax structure, everything becomes state by state. And if you can crush a state, you can do really well. But what you've seen from an equity standpoint is a lot of these public companies that are on the Canadian stock exchanges. They are what they call MSOs or multi-state operators, and they're setting up shops in some of these more favorable states. But they're expanding. Margins are shrinking, and you continue to see kind of price compression because there's an oversaturation of both businesses and product that kind of start to hit the market. You're starting to see emerging markets pop up outside of the US. So Germany, I think, is positioned to lead the Europe in legalization. Thailand's kind of a dope little spot. They're kind of leading the way in Asia. Because this is federally legal, by the way, so just so you guys know, like cannabis is still considered as dangerous as heroin to the DEA and the federal government. So obviously
So
that
dumb. So dumb.
so it's so ridiculous. I don't know the last time you smoked a joint and found yourself, on a park bench for the rest of your life, but it's a challenging one. So the other thing that's really challenging for you guys who are margin guys is like there's something called the 280E tax provision within the IRS tax code. And what that means is that cannabis businesses cannot deduct operating expenses. So that basically results in effective tax rates as high as 70% for some businesses. And that just crushes, margins, and that makes profitability really elusive. And that's really the name of the game right now. It's not growth at all costs anymore. It's like, how do you build a really sustainable business that can cash flow? I saw the Nvidia chart. I was like, oh my God, that's nice. Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
holy smokes.
One day.
Yeah.
I mean, I live like in LA, so like actually around like Melrose. So, like I'm around so many cannabis like spots just to get weed. Um, when I'm linked up with the Curaleaf CEO, I think this time last year, he was mentioning like the black market is really just still like massively disrupting a lot of these businesses that doesn't even feel like it's going away, even if it's federally legal, and that's going to be like an overhang. Do you share that sentiment? Do you see that ever going away, or just going to be like a component of the ecosystem always?
I it, I think it's going to be a component of the ecosystem always. We will see how it evolves. I'm sitting here in California, and California, is one of the largest black markets in the world, and it supplies many other black markets in the world. So, when New York came online, it faltered, and that's largely because you had this influx of bodegas basically selling illegal product that were competing with the legal dispensaries. And when you're not going through the same compliance steps and regulatory hurdles to get products to market, you can cut your costs, right? So you're directly competing with bodegas that do not have to pay taxes, right? So that comes down to the consumer, and right. And if I'm a consumer, like I don't want to buy weed from a bodega, I want to buy weed from a trusted dispensary. So we'll see, how the consumer sentiment shifts and if that starts to stomp out some of the black market stuff. But I think the big thing that was disappointing in California is, there was supposed to be some enforcement, right? If there were black market operators that were continuing to go through the legal frameworks or try to, compete with the legal frameworks, like there was supposed to be some more enforcement to try to stomp that out. And that has not happened I think, as expected.
So do you think the government needs to push quality? Like, once the government gives the green light of federally legal everywhere, do you think the next step for them is like to enforce like benefits towards the actual enterprises who can control the quality of the products, and that's going to be like the massive tailwind that's needed in the whole space?
I think the biggest thing, and it's taxes. If like for instance in California, we're about to see another 25% hike in excise taxes, right? And this is a market where we've seen quarter over quarter declines, as high taxes have really burdened the industry. So to me, it comes down to making sure you have a really scalable and I think beneficial tax structure for the operators. What's been interesting to watch in the US is a lot of red states are starting to turn to recreational cannabis, and the red states are actually setting up tax structures that are more advantageous and beneficial for cannabis businesses. So it always used to be a blue issue, but now the red side of the table is actually coming forth with some more sound ways to set up these policies that benefit the industry, I think, as a whole.
Interesting. So I want to pick your brain on some specific stocks. I do want cannabis exposure in my portfolio, but I'm like a lot of other investors. I've gotten burned from the
Yeah.
head fakes on a lot of these names past like 5 or 6 years. I thought Weed Maps specifically was going to be a big player in the space as like the Google and Yelp of cannabis industry, but as the years have gone on, I'm noticing more and more competition where like people just don't go on Weed Maps as much as they used to a couple years ago. Like, do you also share that sentiment? What is your take on Weed Maps if you have one?
Yeah, well, Weed Maps has been kind of a cornerstone in the industry for a long time. I know that they went through a whole public offering and they did so at a pretty high valuation. And again, I think that's just a function of, lofty valuations at the right time, and then everything kind of coming crashing down when, there's a reckoning, right? So I think that when you look at Weed Maps, I think traffic on Weed Maps is steadily come down. I think what I've been seeing more is brands and companies put more native e-commerce up to really drive traffic. So I think that to me is, it's a brand name and it's a good brand name, but I think there are probably more, I don't know, more seamless and better digital platforms out there than Weedmaps.
That's what I've been hearing too. So I'm glad to hear your opinion on that. My
Yeah.
favorite niche within the cannabis ecosystem is actually the real estate, like IIPR. I think like real estate is one of those areas where it doesn't get hit as much of the taxes due to the real estate laws we have in the government. But I think a lot of like spaces are getting filled up via cannabis when commercial real estate's dying. They're just utilizing a space for that. What's
Yeah.
your take on the real estate component of this, of the ecosystem of cannabis?
I think it's interesting, and I think for companies that do own real estate, that's obviously a very good tool to get financing in a challenging market when banking's a lot more elusive. I think the major issue with real estate that I've seen is that as there's this euphoria when new markets were opening up, there was a higher real estate valuation tied to the license that was then sitting within that real estate, and as more companies came in, the value of that license went down, and therefore the real estate value went down. So I think people got burned because they overvalued the license that was tied to that real estate, and I think that can kind of burn you too. But no, listen, real estate is a tried and true investment vehicle, and if you can do it with the right crew, I think that's a good place to be.
What I think, correct me if I'm wrong, something dropped in Florida like a month or two ago, rejecting some kind of law or bill for cannabis. I was caught off guard by that. I was like, "What? That's still happening?" What's
I
your
still
take
can't
on?
believe in Florida it's not.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
It's just
Like,
it baffles me.
why is that in Florida? Like, why do you think they rejected that?
Yeah, that was a big, in my opinion, a really big setback for the industry when it was the Amendment 3 in Florida. Trump, our boy, he actually he went behind it. So which was the first time I think he's ever been pro cannabis anything. So I think a lot of things went wrong within Florida that basically forced that hand. So Kim Rivers, the CEO of a company called Trulieve, that's a publicly traded MSO, they spent $140 million on trying to pass this Amendment 3 in Florida. $140 million of a $150 million campaign. So they spent that much of the campaign and they failed. It had to be a 60% majority. So it was, I think, a 56 or 57% vote so still the majority, but it still got shot down. I think the biggest issue was DeSantis had a very, very vicious campaign against the amendment. I mean, I've heard people in Florida tell me there's like commercials about how a guy's like, I'm gonna go grow some weed in the backyard, and then he stands in his backyard and there's a dude in a suit like, no, you're not gonna grow any weed here. Like, it's like, so it was like this like corporate, like, it's like the corporate game, and I think it scared that little slim amount of people that could have like pushed it over the edge. And I think what it says is that it's not recreational cannabis or bust anymore, right? It has to be a sound program for the majority of people to really get behind it. The other thing that Florida was doing is they were like putting commercials on about California and how like you want your beaches to smell like weed and wacky tobacco, and it's just like it was a scare tactic and it worked. So if that had passed, I think there would have been a major catalyst for federal reform because Florida is such an important state and because Florida is a red state. So to me, that was a pretty big setback, and makes me very cautious in how I would deploy capital until I see some of these other catalysts take hold.
So let's say Trump, obviously on all his appointees, he could care less about their resume as on leading these like departments within the government. Let's just say he assigns you as the leader of the cannabis department. Like, what would you kind of aim to do in the next 4 years to kind of give that push that cannabis needs in order to like launch it to the next, to validate the whole space going forward? Is it just purely taxes, like just tax incentives like we have for EVs?
The big thing is the rescheduling, right? So right now we are, again, a Schedule 1 narcotic. There's been discussions around getting this to a Schedule 3, which would open up a lot more opportunity for businesses to thrive. So a lot of people, and you can look at this, there's different camps that say you should deschedule it, like alcohol. I don't think we're there yet. I think descheduling is ultimately where we need to be, but let's take this baby steps incrementally. Let's reschedule it to a Schedule 3. Let's do some research on it medically. And then the other thing is the Safer Banking Act. And that's really supposed to open up the banking for cannabis businesses. That will, in essence, start to build the plumbing for things like prime brokerage and custody of assets and things like this, where you can start to see more institutional money flow in. Right now, the money that has been invested in the space has largely been seed investors and angel investors and family offices and these kind of things. There's been a lot of institutional money on the sidelines. So with the Safe Banking Act, the rescheduling, that will position the industry to start to build more of the plumbing so that institutional money can start to flow in more freely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be huge for it, right? And that's what's going to get that institutional money to be like, okay, now we'll look at it. Now we're, comfortable dipping into this space a little bit. Whereas like till that happens, I can see why people might be hesitant there. So
yeah. And listen, the tides are turning, right? There's more states that have legalized this than not, right? So there's I think a huge amount of kind of tailwinds that are saying like the sentiment is like people want cannabis. You look at alcohol consumption. Alcohol consumption has steadily been coming down. Non-alc consumption has come up. THC consumption's come up, right? So I think it's good for America, right? And then you got your boy JFK in there, who's a big plant medicine guy, head of Health and Human Services. Like, let's see what he does. Let's see where he puts his money where his mouth is, and how he thinks about cannabis. But I think the cat's out of the bag at this point. It's just like we can't continue to F this up. So
yeah.
Is there any timelines like the next like 3 or 6 months that investors should be looking out for maybe unexpectedly good or bad movement for cannabis?
Yeah, I mean the Trump administration, I think, provides a little bit more uncertainty at the federal level. He's historically, not supported cannabis. Again, I think the tide of public opinion will probably push him. And, I think most people, like your guy Boris, you mentioned Boris of Curaleaf, like he's very cautiously optimistic about Trump coming into office. As big of a scumbag as Gates is, Matt Gates, if he was nominated as AG, he would have been the most pro-cannabis AG in the history of the United States, right? And now they got this girl, Pam Bondi, who has been mixed on it. So to answer your question, the rescheduling hearing is, I think, meant to happen in January or February. And that's a hearing that's meant to push this rescheduling effort forward. So that would be, I think, step one catalyst to keep an eye out for. But I would just be keeping it nice and tight until then.
Awesome, I appreciate it. Well, looks like we have our Peter coming on right now. Peter.
Oh, no way. Look at him. There he is.
I heard it's chaotic on the floor right now. Can you tell us like what's
Peter,
happening?
I haven't seen the floor that packed in forever.
Look at that. You got Jeff Sprecher, president of the owner of the stock exchange, CEO of the stock exchange. That was crazy. They completely blocked all the phones, so couldn't do anything.
Oh my gosh.
What's up, guys?
What's
That was
up?
nuts. Yeah, we haven't seen it like that since like Ronald Reagan was here. The first day I ever worked on the floor was May 23rd, 1985, and Ronald Reagan was actually rang the bell. But anyway, you know what? I don't have that much to say about it. Besides, it was nice to see a lot of people on the floor.
Absolutely.
Did you get goosebumps when people were chanting USA on the floor? I feel like
What's
that's
that?
Did you get goosebumps when everyone was chanting USA on the floor? I feel like that's like a
Yeah,
new
you know
thing.
what? That no matter what your politics are, that does feel great. I have to admit
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I love that part of it. Yeah, it was quite something. I mean, the crowd that they brought in, right, just in the front, were like CEOs of every top hedge fund, and guys from Goldman, Bill Ackman was there, David Solomon was there from
wow.
from Goldman Sachs. So every top brokerage firm CEO was there. A lot of the hedge fund guys. I was surprised that Elon Musk was here. I think that would have been the perfect addition to the whole thing. But besides that, his whole family was here. Vice President was here, and they did a big thing upstairs at the in the boardroom. I think we weren't allowed up there, and nobody was. really, they had really a super private, even in front of the podium. They, it was like we were there. We were red roped. Even brokers were barely allowed to get early morning looks. So that was kind of crazy. But we thought he would we thought he was going to come late for the bell ringing. But,
yeah.
right. You go hold that bell for a minute. I'll be right there. But he actually made it on time.
How does how does today compare up to like when you get like a crazy new IPO in the market recently? I'm sure it's more busy today, but I'm curious. I know IPOs are still hyped up a bit on the floor.
You're absolutely right. And I have to admit, from the energy wise, look, for some amazing reason, when this room fills with people, there's a certain energy in this place that, that we used to get every day when we would just come to work, right? 1985 through 95, this room had 8,000 people in it. So every day it didn't matter, just any average trading day, this place was, wall to wall people. When we just traded, every crowd, was back to back people. And then as things sort of dwindled, and got a little bit quieter, the only days that we really had that many people was IPO days. I mean, you look at the IPO of Alibaba, right? I was actually standing next to, there's some great shots of me and Jack Ma. We were the two shortest guys in the room. And we hung out together for about 4 hours, and that was pretty amazing. There've been some, I think LinkedIn IPO is amazing. It opened, it was priced at 32, opened at 87 and ran to 160. That was in the days of early, and that was probably, I'm wondering, early 2000s maybe. I mean, those were some of the IPOs that came out. And then there was, 2014, 15, we were doing 15 IPOs a day. So there were some really insane days here with huge crowds. So, it definitely felt like that. I think today there was a lot of security. They cleared off everything. And it was, hold on a minute. You need me?
No worries.
It's
a busy man. Look at him.
Anyway, there was crazy Secret Service. And all those who were big supporters of him were trying to get front steady. He did actually walk by here, but I have to admit it was quite a sight.
Very cool. Well, really good stuff, Peter. I appreciate you coming on with us and showing us everything. Obviously, we got should be a fun market day. Hopefully, I know things are a little choppy here right now, but hopefully
look, you got Bill Ackman actually. Bill Ackman's on CNBC. That's interesting. You had a long chat with it was very funny to see a couple of the Democrats who were actually, like Lynn Martin, I believe, is a Democrat. She was up on the podium with him chanting USA. You've got
awesome.
Jim Cramer. Well, I'm sure in his years, I think he's a Democrat as well. But in his years, I'm sure he's not said great things about Trump. He had to stand and interview him for a while. That was kind of fascinating. Now you've got the CNBC crew. CNBC crew is interviewing Bill Ackman. I think he did a big flip. He was like very, very Democratic for a while, and then I don't know where he lies now. But it should be an interesting day. I think DJT had a nice run, right? It opened at pre-market, was trading at 35 and change, ran up to 37.5. So yeah, there are going to be opportunities. I think maybe Microsoft just broke through a nice levels here. If you're watching that. Obviously, crypto's made a nice little run. So there are definitely stocks that are going to react to this event here with him on the floor. I think this was more a function of him being anointed Person of the Year by Time Magazine. We haven't had a president ring the opening bell since Bush won.
Oh, was that the last time? Wow.
That was the last time, yeah. But the old man Bush, not even the younger Bush. Younger, it was not. It was old man Bush, and I remember that we actually powdered his shoes. That was pretty funny. One of the pranks that we do on the floor when back in the day when dignitaries would come down, they'd be engaged in a conversation. Someone would come up behind them and dump baby powder on their shoes. So we powdered George Bush's shoes. He had a good sense of humor. He didn't get angry.
Oh, that's funny.
But only a few people have actually gotten really angry when they had like some guy had velvet. I don't know who it was. It was president of some country, some dignitary had like these velvet purple shoes, and we powdered them. And I'm sure he probably never was able to wear them again. But anyway,
he'll buy new ones. It's all good.
I'm sure he can afford a new pair of shoes.
Yeah. Well, awesome stuff, Peter. I think we're coming into the hour here, so we're gonna wrap up. But what a
Good.
beautiful morning! I appreciate you coming on and sharing the stock exchange with us and just your thoughts. You're the man. So appreciate
Pleasure,
you.
guys. I try and come on tomorrow. See you soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Bye, guys.
All right. Well, guys, beautiful morning. Hope everybody trades safe today. We're gonna wrap it up, but Max, appreciate you coming on too, talking cannabis with us. That was awesome.
Anytime.
Yeah, we love to have you on again and deep dive a little bit more. But let's have a great day trading, everybody. We'll see everybody bright and early in the morning.
See you guys.
And yeah, have a good one.
Good luck. See you guys.